Welcome. This is our first chapter in organizational behavior. It's our chapter 1 in our textbook. And in this chapter, we're really just going to begin our study of organizational behavior by defining what it is, discussing its evolution from its genesis to its present conception, and giving you a little bit of an idea about some of the contemporary issues that we face in organizational behavior. So really, it's a very good introductory chapter to get us acquainted with the material and kind of set the groundwork and the framework for what we're going to explore throughout the rest of the class. So this is a very important chapter. I hope you stay focused throughout it. So the first thing, as I said and we mentioned earlier, is that we're going to look at the general definition of what organizational behavior is. Organizational behavior here is defined as the interdisciplinary field dedicated to better understanding and managing people at work. What does that really mean? Well, first, interdisciplinary tells us that the study of organizational behavior draws from many different areas of research. Included in that is anthropology, psychology, sociology, organizational theory, statistics. All of these different fields have helped us, I should say, understand how people act within the organizational context, and also, and importantly, the antecedents of those behaviors and the consequences of those behaviors. What you must understand from the very beginning is that organizational behavior is all about people, how people behave, why they behave in certain ways, and what are the consequences or the outcomes of that behavior. And because we're considering people, we look at people on the individual level, 2, in groups or team structures, and thirdly, as one united organizational unit. So we look at this tripartite, or 3 levels: the individual, the team or group level, and thirdly, the organizational level. And we not only consider those 3 levels when we're looking at the how people behave, but we also consider those 3 levels when we are considering the antecedents of those behaviors, why people behave in this manner. And we also concern ourselves with those 3 levels when we are looking at the outcomes of behavior, meaning the individual outcomes, the group level outcomes, as well as the organizational outcomes. It may be very surprising to you to learn that in the beginning of management theory and organizational studies, the importance of people, of the human being, to the effectiveness and efficiency of organization was actually highly de-emphasized. In the early days of management studies, the organization was most concerned with being efficient, being able to control activity, to have consistency in performance. And people were in fact seen as a liability to this process because people are inherently more error prone than, let's say, machines. And so the importance of people to the organizational performance was, as I said, de-emphasized and highly limited. Enter the human relations movement, and what this really ushered in was a different approach to thinking about people and the role that they played within organization. You had now people, managers, theorists, researchers, considering the importance of people and the benefit of individuals to organizational performance. Employees were now being better represented because of the legalization of the union management situation. So their needs, their desires were being better represented in the organization. As I mentioned before, behavioral scientists were starting to really understand how people could be utilized within an organization to not only bring about efficiency, but also to bring about effectiveness and success within the organizational framework. So the human relations movement really was a paradigm shift in how people, both in the academic setting as well as the corporate setting, thought about human beings within the organizational context. They were now seen as being important, and therefore if we could understand what they did, and more importantly, why they behaved in certain way, then organizations could then model specific types of behavior. In so doing, increase the management effectiveness and likely lead to better organizational performance. So that understanding people and leveraging their benefits, their utility, could lead organizations to increase success. A classic example of this paradigm shift can be seen in McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. And you might have heard about this before. Somebody might have categorized you as a Theory X person, a Theory Y person. Well, the initial approach to people in organizations was really all about Theory X. Managers, owners of organizations thought that, you know what, people inherently didn't like to work. They didn't want to work, and they only worked because it was this necessary evil. And so because people didn't want to work, managers and leaders of organizations kind of had to coerce them or threaten them into working. So it was more about putting punishment there as a motivator rather than utilizing rewards. And they actually believed that individuals, the majority of individuals in the organization, really wanted to be told what to do. And that is born out of this whole idea of the command and control. I am here as the owner. I am more intelligent than you. I have more experience than you. So I'm just here. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do. And in fact, you, because you're not that intelligent and because you really don't want to think for yourself, you will actually benefit and you will desire that type of management approach where I dictate to you. That was the Theory X. Well, McGregor said that's really not what people, the majority of people, are like. People actually want to work. They like to work. They see benefits from working. And so by looking at them as creatures that need to be punished or coerced into doing, you're doing them a level of disservice, and you're doing your organization a level of disservice. People want to work for organizations. They want to do well, and they want to be committed to organizations, and they want organizations to be committed to them by rewarding them. And the typical employee, McGregor argues, they can actually be trained to want responsibility and to accept it and to do well with it. Another approach or another element that contributed to organizational behavior as it evolved was this contingency approach to management. What is a contingency approach? It simply means that we as management theorists and even people in business recognize that there was not necessarily one best way to manage organizations and to manage people, because people are different, because people are idiosyncratic, and in fact their interaction with others are idiosyncratic. Then the best approach to dealing with people, meaning modeling their behavior, is highly dependent on who those people are, as well as the situation that those people find themselves in, the context. And therefore, the best approach to managing people is going to be determined by, one, who the individuals are, who the teams are, as well as the situation or the context in which these people find themselves. So there isn't necessarily any universal model, any universal theory that can be unequivocally applied in all types of settings. You're going to see this especially true when we deal with leadership. There isn't, for example, one best leadership style. The reality is it depends. The same thing applies to how we motivate. Is it better to provide monetary incentives, or is it better to provide security or status? It depends, and that's really what the contingency approach is. And again, understanding the nuances and differences in individuals helps us to apply this contingency approach when we're studying organizations. So being mindful of both the contingency approach as well as the human relations movement, you should recognize why in today's business society, in today's business environment, we are so prominent and emphasize so greatly the human being, the benefit of having the right people in your organization. And that's why we talk about this being the age of the human and social capital. What is human capital? It says here the productive potential of one's knowledge and actions. A present or future employee with the right combination of knowledge, skills, and motivation to excel. Human capital is just that potential that exists within people, within employees, because of what they know and because of what they do. Recognize it's not just simply where they are right now, but it is that potential that can be increased by learning, by experience, by having the ability to practice and to become better. You want people with large reservoirs of human capital, with large levels of knowledge, or the ability to acquire more knowledge and the ability to do things effectively, because it's that capital that you're going to be able to leverage in order to become successful in your business. Think about the human capital like somebody like Steve Jobs had, what he brought to Apple. They were able to utilize that capital, that potential that he had because of his knowledge, because of his ability, utilize it to create these innovative products that became so highly successful and led to Apple's prominence in the business environment. So that human capital is key to being successful, especially in today's market. But along with human capital is also this idea of social capital. And what is social capital? It's related to human capital, but it has to do with the interaction of individuals, how individuals relate to each other, and what comes out of those relationships that are formed between and among individuals. So there is a distinct relationship between human capital and social capital. Social capital is built through the relationships that individuals share with each other. So you'll see under that slide, under that figure 1.1 in social capital, we're talking about things like teamwork, shared visions and goals, trust, friendship, support groups, mentoring. Whatever comes out of the relationship between and among individuals that can be utilized for the organization's benefit is considered social capital. So human capital is the investment, is the potential within the single individual. When those individuals come together, when they cooperate, when their capital is combined, what is created in those relationships that can then be leveraged is what we consider to be social capital. As you see here, the definition of social capital, the productive potential of strong, trusting, and cooperative relationships. All that says there is that there is some benefit to having these strong, trusting relationships where people come together. You can leverage that trust. You can leverage that relationship to help you to be successful. Think about the term that we use all the time, networking, okay? The benefits that come from knowing the right people, being in contact with the right people, can definitely help organizations to be successful. Steve Jobs, while he had an immense amount of human capital, was able to connect to other important players in Silicon Valley, in the innovative technology industry. And because of those relationships, Apple was able to get their products to market and be the most distinct producer of technology out there. Keeping in mind the definition of organizational behavior as well as the evolution of organizational behavior from the human relations movement right up to now, our emphasis on both human and social capital, we now turn our attention to two important contemporary issues in organizational behavior. And the first one has to do with e-business. And your text actually distinguishes between e-business and e-commerce. E-commerce has to do more with selling products online. E-business has to do with transactions and interactions within a business framework, whether that be through sales to customers or interactions within the organization between employees and managers, the transferring of knowledge, etc. Anything that uses information technology to run or to operate a business can be seen as e-business. And of course, the benefit of e-business to many firms in today's society is that it allows them to basically overcome the physical or geographical boundaries that used to exist. Now, because of the internet and because of other types of technology, firms can expand their market share. They can reach out to more customers. They can even reach out and gain more resources by using e-business. So of course there is a distinct benefit of e-business to many organizations, and that's why we're seeing many organizations utilizing e-business in their everyday operation. While organizations can distinctly benefit from e-business, there are of course significant implications to organization and managing people that comes about from using greater and greater levels of technology and communication. And what are some of these implications? Well, first of all, the whole 24/7 connectivity, meaning that more and more people are being linked to their organizations even when they are not in the physical space of an office. So most of us have tablets, we have laptops, we have smartphones, and we can check our work email even when we are not physically there. We can transact business. We don't have to be actually in the office. And because of that, managers need to be able to access employees, hire employees that are what we term self-discipline. Since managers do not have the ability to many times physically monitor or control behavior, they have to depend on the individual to do what they are expected to do, even when they are not physically located or within the confines of whether time or space. Apart from the greater use of technology is of course this whole issue of the ethics challenge. I'm certain that you have heard of all the scandals that have taken place in corporate America, and in fact global corporate scandals, because of people, high-level managers, even low-level employees, doing things that are seen to be morally corrupt. Ethics is all about good and bad, right versus wrong, doing what is morally acceptable. And so this ethical challenge that faces many businesses is to find ways to promote morally good decisions by employees, even in the face of environments that require greater and greater levels of success. So what is occurring here is that firms are recognizing that they have to ensure that their employees act in morally suitable ways, but often have to battle the impulses or the pressures that are placed on them to get things done no matter the cost. And so this ethical challenge is present in many organizations and many organizational environments. While the ethical challenge has to do more so with individual decision making, ensuring that individuals within your organization make the morally correct decisions, the corresponding concept as it relates to organizations is this one that is termed corporate social responsibility. And what that really means is that we now view corporations as having some type of obligation, whether that be social or moral, beyond simply making a profit or maximizing the profit for their investors, for their shareholders. Okay, and the real challenge that firms have, especially in periods that we're facing, like we're facing right now in terms of economic crisis, the challenge is to not simply focus on the bottom line, not simply focus on the financial well-being, but look at enhancing the organization's relationship with other people, other actors, what we call stakeholders, like employees and customers and suppliers, and thereby benefiting not only the financial well-being of society, but also the social well-being of society. So firms are more and more being asked to go beyond just simply making a profit, but to also focus and do good with respect to social enhancement. That's what corporate social responsibility is really all about. Well, of course, not every firm thinks that way, meaning that not every firm thinks that they have some kind of obligation to society beyond just making profit. And a person called Archie Carroll actually created a pyramid that demonstrates the different levels of social responsibility. At the very bottom is just simply firms that exist to make a profit. They're there to maximize shareholder wealth, and while they see that as being important, they don't really see themselves having any type of social obligation beyond that. I'm here to make a profit essentially by any means necessary. That's why I am in business. The second level recognizes while it is important to be financially viable, while it is important to be financially successful, that as an organization, you at least have to fulfill the laws of the land. And so you fulfill and you obey the laws in the in the context and the environments in which you find yourself. So that's level 1 and 2. Level 1, do the bare minimum. Basically, I simply make a profit, and I might even contravene the laws if it allows me to make a profit. Level 2, I'm trying to make a profit, but I am trying to stay within the framework of the law. I recognize that I at least have to abide by the legal stipulations and requirements that govern wherever I am doing business. Whereas in the level 1 and level 2, the bottom levels of social responsibility, firms really saw themselves more as financial instruments or financial actors, meaning that they really viewed shareholders, investors as the most important members or stakeholders of their organizations. In level 3 and 4, the firm is now seeing itself more so as a social actor. So it is accepting, and in some cases willingly accepting, its responsibilities to society. So in level 3, the organization not only sees itself as being a financial instrument and also seeing itself as being a legal or having a need to abide by the laws, but it also recognizing that it has some type of ethical responsibility to society. It must abide not only by the laws of the land, but also by the norms, the social customs, and the values of the environment in which it finds itself. So that's level 3. Not only do I have a responsibility to my shareholders to maximize my profit, but I also have a responsibility to governments to abide by the law. And thirdly, I have a responsibility to the society to accept and abide by the norms, practices, values in which they actually establish themselves. And in level 4, that's really where we see the prominent social responsibility firms, the firms that we know and we read about and we teach on, that have distinguished themselves in terms of social responsibility. In this case, not only is the firm being financially prudent, meaning that it is taking care of its stockholders, it is abiding by the laws, and it is being ethical, but it goes beyond that and attempts to be what we call a good corporate citizen. It finds ways to do or give to society even more than society requires of it. So recognizing the importance of ethics, being ethical, being socially responsible, of course organizations want to know how to improve the ethical climate, if you will, of the organization. How to best influence my employees, my people, to act ethically in all situations. And of course, the best way to do that is as a manager to behave ethically yourself. You want to demonstrate and be an exemplar to all those in your organization. So when they see you acting ethically, they recognize that this is something that the organization values. You want to screen potential employees. You want to make sure that the people that you're hiring already have some predisposition to act ethically, and therefore they are likely to continue that type of behavior, even in the face, I should say, of pressure to act unethically. You want to develop a meaningful code of ethics, so therefore people within the organization at all levels of the organization can have some type of rule, some type of policy to utilize when having to make the difficult decisions. You want to reinforce provide ethic training, meaning that you don't just assume, well, hey, this person I hired kind of is ethical, I think they're going to act ethically. You want to train them, you want to place them in certain situations, you want to give them opportunities to demonstrate whether or not they will practice ethical behavior. You want to reinforce that training, ensure that you reward them when they act ethically. And you also want to, within your structure, promote ethics by having units, by having formal departments or structures that deal or specifically protect ethics within your organization. So you don't want to just leave this to chance. You don't want to have it kind of just on the side, hey, we know we do ethics. You want to legitimize it by having it formally recognized in the organizational structure.